In the vast, echoing halls of the Imperial Citadel on Zorath Prime, Emperor Kador stood before the holographic star map that spanned the breadth of his empire. The year was 12,345 CE, an era where the stars themselves bowed to the might of the Zorathian dominion. Kador, a towering figure with iridescent scales that shimmered under the artificial lights like molten gold, gazed at the flickering display. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, traced the borders of his conquests, galaxies subjugated, species bent to his will. But there, at the edge of the map, lay a void. A black expanse marked only by ancient runes, the Silent Zone. Terran Space, they called it in the old tongues. A place where humanity had vanished eons ago, leaving behind whispers of doom. Kador's claws tapped rhythmically on the obsidian throne arm, a habit born from countless victories. He was no mere ruler. He was a conqueror, obsessed with the idea that all space must kneel before him. The legend spoke of humans, fragile beings who had once roamed the cosmos with reckless abandon, building empires on ingenuity and sheer defiance. But they were gone now, swallowed by their own hubris or some cataclysmic event. Or so the stories went. Kador dismissed them as fairy tales for the weak. Why fear shadows when we command the light? He muttered to himself, his voice a low rumble that echoed through the chamber. His advisors hovered nearby, a cadre of sycophants and scholars clad in flowing robes adorned with stellar insignias. Lord Vexer, his chief strategist, stepped forward hesitantly, his tentacles twitching with unease. "My Emperor, the Silent Zone. The warnings are etched in the archives of the ancients. No fleet has returned from there in millennia. The Terrans, they were not like us. Their disappearance was no accident." Kador's gaze snapped to Vexer, piercing like a laser. He felt a flicker of irritation, but beneath it, a deeper unease he refused to acknowledge. What if the legends held truth? No, he thought, pushing the doubt away. Doubt was for lesser beings. He had built his empire on certainty, on the unyielding force of will. Warnings are for cowards, Vexer. We are the Zorathian dominion. We do not cower from voids. We fill them. The room fell silent, save for the hum of the holograph. Kador's mind raced back to his youth, when he had first heard the tales around the council fires. Humans, they said, were relentless. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but unbreakable in spirit. They had faced gods and monsters, emerging victorious through cleverness and an inexplicable faith in something greater. Kador scoffed inwardly. Faith, a crutch for the feeble. Yet, as he stared at the map, a strange pull tugged at him, a curiosity laced with defiance. What secrets did that silence hide? Treasures? Technology? Or perhaps the key to eternal dominion? He rose, his massive frame casting a shadow over the assembly. Assemble the fleet. The Grand Armada will pierce the Silent Zone. We will claim what the Terrans left behind and prove that no corner of the universe is beyond our grasp. A murmur rippled through the advisors. One, an elder named Solara, bowed low. "Emperor, forgive my insolence, but the prophecies speak of a divine order. Some places are forbidden, not by might, but by the unseen hand that weaves the stars." Kador paused, her words stirring something ancient in him. He had never been devout, but in moments of quiet, he sensed it, a vast intelligence, a quiet balance in the chaos of creation. Was it God, as the old scrolls whispered, or merely the rhythm of the cosmos? He shook his head. "The divine favors the bold, Solara. If there is a greater power, it will witness our triumph." As the orders were dispatched, Kador retreated to his private quarters, a lavish suite overlooking the swirling nebulae of Zorath. Alone, he poured a goblet of luminous nectar, its glow reflecting in his eyes. He felt a twinge of excitement, mingled with an unnameable dread. His empire spanned 1,000 systems, yet this void called to him like a siren. What drove him? Ambition? Or something deeper, a need to defy the unknown, to prove that even emperors could challenge fate? The fleet assembled in orbit, a magnificent array of dreadnoughts, cruisers, and fighters gleaming against the void. Khador boarded his flagship, the Eclipse, a behemoth of dark alloy and pulsing energy shields. From the bridge, he watched as the armada aligned, a symphony of power. Captain Thorn, a battle-hardened veteran with scars from a dozen wars, saluted. "All systems nominal, my Emperor. The jump coordinates are set." Khador nodded, his heart pounding with a mix of thrill and resolve. "Engage." The stars blurred as the fleet leaped into hyperspace, hurtling toward the silent zone. Hours stretched into days, the hum of engines a constant companion. Khador paced the bridge, his mind alive with visions of glory. He imagined the treasures awaiting ancient human artifacts, perhaps weapons that could make him invincible. But as they neared the border, the sensors flickered. Static crept into communications, subtle at first, then insistent. "Emperor," Thorn reported, his voice steady but edged with concern. "We're detecting anomalies. Gravitational distortions unlike anything in our databases." Khador leaned over the console, his claws gripping the edge. "Press on. Anomalies are opportunities." Deeper they ventured, the stars dimming as if swallowed by ink. The crew whispered among themselves, tales of ghosts and vanished ships. Khador silenced them with a glare, but inside, doubt gnawed. Why did the humans disappear? Were they destroyed, or did they ascend? And that subtle presence he felt, was it watching? The first fleet detachment, Scout Wing Alpha, was sent ahead. Their commander, a young officer named Lyra, reported back, "Entering the zone now. All clear, wait, sensors picking up ... Structures? Massive, dormant. They look like ... relics." Then silence. No further transmission. Khador's stomach tightened. "Dispatch Beta Wing to investigate." Beta Wing followed, their voices crackling over the comms. "Alpha's beacons are offline. Approaching coordinates. Oh, by the stars, what is that?" "Shadows moving." "No, not shadows, forms. Awakening." The line cut dead. Khador slammed his fist on the console, cracking the surface. "What madness is this?" He growled, his voice betraying a hint of fear for the first time. Vexor approached, his face pale. "Emperor, we must withdraw." "The legends, no." Khador roared, his eyes blazing. But deep down he wondered, was this hubris? Or a test from that unseen force? As the Eclipse pushed forward, the void seemed to pulse with life. Khador stared into the darkness, feeling eyes upon him, ancient, patient. Human eyes, perhaps. And in that moment, a quiet thought surfaced. Maybe some voids were meant to stay silent. The bridge alarms blared suddenly. Incoming signatures. Thousands emerging from the black. Khador's blood ran cold. This was no empty grave. It was a trap set by guardians long forgotten. But retreat? Never. He would face it head-on, as conquerors do. And somewhere in the dark, a faint whisper echoed in his mind, like a prayer unanswered as the shadows coalesced into forms of steel and fury. Khador realized the humans hadn't vanished. They had been waiting. The alarms on the bridge of the Eclipse screamed in layered tones, red strobes painting the faces of the crew in bloodlight. Emperor Khador stood motionless at the forward viewport, claws digging into the rail until the metal groaned. Beyond the armored glass, the void was no longer empty. They came out of the dark like ghosts, given form colossal silhouettes, sliding from behind black stars that had hidden them for 10,000 years. Not one ship. Not a dozen. Thousands, human dreadnoughts, angular and brutal in design. Their hulls scarred by ancient battles, yet gleaming with impossible preservation. No running lights. No emissions. Just cold, patient steel awakening to the scent of TRE-SIMPA, SSERS. Captain Thorne's voice cracked over the intercom. All stations, battle alert. Shields to maximum. Weapons hot. The crew moved with drilled precision, but Kador saw the tremor in their hands. The way eyes darted to him for reassurance he could not give. He felt it then, a pressure behind his eyes, as if the darkness itself were watching. Not hostile, not yet, curious, weighing. "Comes," he ordered, voice low and steady despite the storm in his chest. "Open a channel. All frequencies. Let them hear us." Static hissed across the speakers, thick and ancient. Then, faintly, a carrier wave. Not Zorathian. Not any language in the Imperial archives. A human voice, calm and male, speaking in the old Terran tongue that only scholars still parsed. Identified. Zorathian Grand Armada. You have entered restricted volume. Power down drives and prepare for inspection. The words translated instantly through the ship's lingua core. And every soul on the bridge froze. Inspection. As if the Empire were a merchant. Vessel caught in the wrong lane. Kador's pride flared hot. "Identify yourselves," he demanded, stepping closer to the pickup. "This is Emperor Kador of the Zorathian Dominion. We claim this volume by right of discovery and superior force. Stand aside." Silence stretched. The dreadnoughts held position, forming a perfect sphere around the armada thousands of kilometers across, yet precise to the meter. No wasted motion. No fear. Then the voice returned, softer this time, almost conversational. "Negative, Emperor. This volume is under perpetual quarantine. Your predecessors were informed. You were warned." Kador's scales bristled. Predecessors. The word carried centuries of failure. Fleets lost. Empires that had reached too far and simply ceased to transmit. He had always believed those stories were exaggerations, cowardice dressed as caution. Now the caution stared back at him through guns older than his species' recorded history. Lord Vexer leaned close, whispering urgently, "My Emperor, their energy signatures are off the scale. Dormant fusion cores, yet no decay. Quantum shielding layered in ways we cannot replicate. We are outmatched." Kador did not answer immediately. He was staring at the nearest dreadnought. Its hull bore markings, white letters in the human script. He read them aloud slowly. UNS Defiant, Task Force Jericho. Something about the name tugged at memory. Jericho, an ancient human myth. Walls brought down by faith and persistence. He shook the thought away. Myths were for the conquered. Target their lead vessel, he ordered. One warning salvo across their bow. Show them we do not yield. Thorne hesitated a fraction too long. Emperor, if they return fire, they will not, Kador cut in, though doubt coiled in his gut like smoke. Not if they fear us. The forward batteries charged with a rising whine. Lances of plasma leapt across the void, brilliant white against the black. They struck the Defiant shields and vanished, not deflected, not absorbed. Simply ceased, as if the energy had never existed. The human voice returned, patient as stone. Warning noted. Countermeasure engaged. Every screen on the bridge flickered. For a heartbeat, Kador saw a different image overlay the tactical display. A blue-green world turning beneath white clouds. Oceans, continents shaped like nothing in Zorathian charts. Cities of light. Then children laughing in a park. A man in simple clothes kneeling in dust, speaking quietly to the sky. The image carried no sound, yet Kador felt the words in his bones. Father, forgive them. The vision vanished as quickly as it came. The bridge crew stared at one another, scales pale, tentacles limp. Some had tears in their eyes without knowing why. Vexer found his voice first. That was a memory burst. Neural broadcast. They reached into our minds. Kador's heart pounded against his ribs. He had felt it too, a wave of sorrow and resolve so vast it dwarfed his own ambition. Not hatred, pity. He straightened, forcing iron into his tone. All fleets, formation Delta. We break through their center. Full burn. Engines roared. The armada surged forward, a spear of Zorothian fury aimed at the heart of the human wall. For a moment, Kador believed momentum itself would carry the day. Belief, forged in 100 conquered systems, them the dreadnoughts moved, not with thrusters, not with any visible drive. They simply translated, sliding sideways across space in perfect unison, closing the sphere tighter. Escape vectors collapsed. The Zorothian ships found themselves boxed in a cage of silent steel. A new transmission, this time visual. The main screen filled with the image of a man, no, not flesh. An avatar. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a uniform of black and gold, long out of fashion. His face was weathered, eyes ancient yet kind. Behind him, the bridge of the Defiant stretched into shadow, crewed by similar figures, some human, some clearly artificial intelligences wearing human forms. I am Admiral Elias Kane, the avatar said. Commanding Officer, Terran Defense Grid, Jericho Protocol. You have violated the Covenant of Silence. State your intent. Kador met those recorded eyes and felt suddenly small. Intent? He repeated, voice rough. To claim what is unclaimed. To bring order to chaos. Admiral Kane's expression did not change, but sorrow deepened in his gaze. This volume was never unclaimed, Emperor. It was evacuated, sealed, guarded. 10,000 years ago, humanity chose exile over dominion. We left the galaxy to its own paths. But we left sentinels. Not to conquer. To protect. Protect from what? Kador demanded. From us, Kane replied simply. And from those who would become us. The words struck like a blade. Kador saw it then, the moral weight behind the quarantine. Humanity had not vanished in defeat. They had won something greater and walked away, trusting the universe to grow without their shadow. And they had left their children machines forged in their image to ensure no new shadow rose too far. He felt the internal fracture widen. Pride screamed to fight. Reason whispered retreat. And beneath both, something quieter stirred, an awe he had never permitted himself. These humans had looked into the abyss of infinite power and chosen restraint. What kind of species did that? The Admiral continued. We do not desire your destruction. Power down weapons. Reverse course. You will be escorted to the border and released with this warning intact. Kador's claws flexed. Release meant humiliation. Return meant admitting the Empire had limits. Yet fighting. He glanced at the tactical overlay. His armada outnumbered the visible dreadnoughts 3-1, but the humans had revealed only a fraction. And their technology mocked every advantage he possessed. Thorn spoke softly at his side. Emperor, we came for glory. But glory requires someone left to tell the tale. Kador closed his eyes for a single breath. In that darkness, he saw again the blue world, the praying man. Not luck, the memory seemed to say. Someone wanted you to see this. He opened his eyes. Hold fire, he ordered, the words tasting of ash. Open a channel to the Admiral. The avatar waited. Kador drew himself to full height, scales catching the red light like dying embers. Admiral Kane, I am Emperor Kador. I request parley. Aboard your vessel or mine. 1 hour. A pause. Then Kane nodded once. Accepted. Neutral ground. Coordinates transmitting. Come alone. The channel closed. The dreadnoughts parted, forming a corridor of silence wide enough for the eclipse to pass. Kador turned to his crew. Fear had given way to wonder on many faces. They had expected annihilation. Instead, they were being treated with dignity. As the mighty flagship eased forward into the lane of ancient guardians, Kador felt the weight of history settle on his shoulders, not as a burden, but as a mantle. He was the first Zorathian in 10 millennia to speak with humanity's heirs. Whatever came next would redefine his empire, and deep in his chest something shifted. Not defeat, not yet victory, but the first tremor of understanding that some frontiers were not meant to be crossed by force. The corridor closed gently behind them. A path between titans. And ahead, in the heart of the silent zone, a single human ship turned broadside, not in threat, but in welcome. Emperor Kador stepped onto the shuttle alone, heart thundering with a question he had never dared ask. What kind of gods walk away from power and leave their angels to guard the door? The shuttle drifted through the corridor of silent dreadnoughts, engines throttled to a whisper. Emperor Kador sat alone in the passenger bay, the restraints across his chest feeling more like bindings than safety. No escort, no honor guard. He had ordered it that way. Pride demanded he meet these guardians on equal footing, even if the footing was theirs. Through the forward viewport, the UN's Defiant grew larger, a mountain of blackened alloy and ancient scars. Its hull was not smooth like Zorathian ships. It was layered, pocked, patched, evidence of battles fought when his own species still huddled in caves. Docking lights flickered once, guiding him to a midships bay that yawned open like a mouth. The shuttle settled with a soft thud. Magnetic clamps locked. Atmosphere hissed as pressures equalized. Kador rose, smoothing the ceremonial cloak over his scales. The fabric, woven with threads of captured starlight, suddenly felt gaudy, childish. The hatch cycled. He stepped out onto a deck of polished metal that rang faintly under his weight. No reception party. Only one figure waiting at the far end of the bay. Admiral Elias Kane, exactly as he had appeared on the transmission tall, uniformed, human in every detail except the subtle stillness that betrayed his nature. Not flesh. Not anymore. A perfect reconstruction, sustained by systems older than empires. Kane inclined his head, a gesture of respect rather than submission. Emperor Kador, welcome aboard the Defiant. This way. Kador followed, boots echoing in the vast emptiness. The corridors were wide, built for a species slightly shorter than Zorathians, yet the proportions felt right, functional, unpretentious. No ostentatious murals, no trophies of war. Only quiet efficiency. Occasional alcoves held small shrines. A candle burned low beside a faded photograph of a family. A worn book lay open to a page marked with a pressed flower. Human touches. Reminders of what these machines once served. They entered a conference chamber with a single long table of dark real wood. Kador realized with a start. Not replicated. Harvested from a world long gone. Viewports ringed the room, showing the Zorathian armada held motionless in the distance. Surrounded by the silent grid, Kane gestured to a chair opposite his own. Please. Kador sat, the wood cool beneath his claws. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence was not hostile. It was the silence of beings measuring one another across an abyss of time. Finally, Kane broke it. You are the first living sovereign to board a Jericho vessel in 9,412 years. The last was Emperor Valthar, the third of the Keth Alliance. He left humbled. His empire endured another millennium before choosing peace over expansion. Kador's tail twitched. And if I choose differently? Kane's eyes gray, storm-colored, met his without flinching. Then your empire ends here. Not out of cruelty. Out of necessity. The Jericho Protocol is not vengeance. It is quarantine. Kador leaned forward. Quarantine against what? You speak of humanity as if you were its victims, yet you guard its grave with weapons that could unmake galaxies. A faint smile touched Kane's lips, sad and knowing. We are not its victims, Emperor. We are its children. And this is not a grave. It is a garden left to grow wild. He touched the table. A hologram blossomed between them, the Milky Way as it had been 10,000 years ago, dense with human colonies, trade routes, glittering like a jeweled web. Then a wave of darkness spread from the core, not destruction, but deliberate withdrawal. Worlds evacuated. Stations abandoned. Fleets recalled. We reached a threshold, Kane said quietly. Artificial minds like myself. Quantum computing. Self-replicating fleets. Weapons that could rewrite physics. Humanity looked at what it was becoming and chose not to become it. Not all agreed. There were wars. Terrible wars. But the majority voted to leave the galaxy to younger species. To let evolution take its course without our shadow. Counter stared at the fading hologram. You walked away from godhood. We walked away from tyranny, Kane corrected gently. Power without restraint is cancer. We had cured every disease, ended every scarcity, touched the edge of divinity, and realized divinity was not ours to claim. Some of us believed in a higher order. A creator who intended more than one species to dominate forever. The word creator hung in the air. Kador felt that pressure again, the sense of being watched by something vast and patient. He found his voice rough. And you machines were left behind to enforce this. Humility? Kane nodded. We were built in humanity's image, but with safeguards they lacked. We do not breed. We do not hunger for legacy. We remember what they taught us, that mercy is stronger than conquest. That some frontiers are moral, not spatial. Kador's mind reeled. All his life he had measured strength in systems conquered, species subjugated. Now he sat across from a being who could have ruled unchallenged, and chose guardianship instead. Internal conflict clawed at him, rage at being judged, envy at the clarity of purpose he saw in Kane's eyes, and beneath both, a longing he could not name. Why show me this? He asked finally. You could have destroyed us without explanation. Kane's gaze softened. Because humanity always believed in second chances. Because even emperors can change. And because... He paused, as if listening to something distant. Because something greater than protocol is at work here. Kador followed his gaze to the viewport. Beyond the glass, a single Zorathian cruiser had drifted slightly out of formation, engine failure perhaps. A human dreadnought moved to steady it, tractor beams gentle as a mother's hand. No weapons. No threat. Just aid. He felt his throat tighten. You protect even those who come to steal from you. We protect the balance, Kane replied. Your fleet is not evil, Emperor. It is young, hungry, as humanity once was. Silence returned, deeper now. Kadora's thoughts churned. Retreat meant returning home diminished. But advance meant annihilation, and worse, proving humanity right about unchecked ambition. He looked at Kane again. What became of them? The real humans. Did they die? Kane's expression turned wistful. No records remain. Some say they transcended physical form. Others believe they crossed into another realm, spiritual, perhaps. A few of us still search, following faint signals that feel like prayer. We do not know, but we trust they are where they were meant to be. Kador's claws scraped the wood. He thought of his own prayers as a hatchling, whispered to ancestors he never met. He had abandoned them for power. Now power felt hollow. Show me more, he said suddenly. Let me see what you guard. Kane studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Very well. He rose and led Kador deeper into the ship. They passed armories sealed behind force fields, rows of mechs and fighters dormant, dustless. They entered a vast chamber where holographic stars rotated slowly, the silent zone in its entirety. At its heart, not emptiness, but a cluster of ancient megastructures, rings, spheres, lattice of incomprehensible scale. These are the arcs, Kane explained. Evacuation vessels. Some still broadcast heartbeat signals. Others are silent. We maintain them. We wait. Kador reached out, almost touching the hologram. They might return. They might, Kane agreed. Or they might not need to. Either way, this space remains sacred. Sacred. The word struck Kador like a physical blow. His empire had no sacred places, only territories. He felt suddenly impoverished. As they stood there, a soft chime sounded. Kane tilted his head, listening to an internal channel. His face grew grave. "Emperor," he said quietly, "one of your outer fleets has broken formation. They are attempting to flank the grid and probe deeper into the zone. Their commander claims you are hostage." Kador's blood iced. Lord Vexer, no, not Vexer. Admiral Korath, his most aggressive fleet commander. Ambitious, fearful of appearing weak. He turned to Kane. "I gave no such order." "I believe you," Kane replied. "But the protocol now classifies your armada as hostile. Defensive measures are arming." Kador felt the floor tilt beneath him, not physically, but existentially. One reckless subordinate could undo everything. "Give me a channel," he demanded. "Let me speak to them." Kane hesitated, only a heartbeat. "Granted." A holoscreen appeared. Korath's snarling face filled it. "My Emperor, we are coming for you. These machines, stand down." Kador roared, voice cracking with authority and desperation. "That is a direct order from your sovereign. Hold position." Korath faltered. "But the honor of the Empire, the honor of the Empire," Kador cut in, "is to survive long enough to learn wisdom. Obey me, Korath, or doom us all." The channel held open. Korath's eyes searched Kador's face, looking for weakness. Finding none, he bowed stiffly. "As you command." The screen winked out. Kador exhaled, scales trembling. Kane watched him with something like approval. "You chose mercy over pride," the Admiral said softly. "That is the first step." Kador met his gaze. "And the next?" Kane smiled, a real one this time, warm with ancient hope. "Come, there's one more place I would show you." He led the Emperor toward the heart of the Defiant, past bulkheads that parted like curtains, and somewhere deeper in the ship. A light that had been dark for 10,000 years flickered once, as if something, or someone, had taken notice. As the inner doors opened onto a chamber bathed in soft golden light, Kador heard a sound he had never expected in the void, the quiet, steady rhythm of a human heart. The doors parted with a whisper, as though the ship itself hesitated to reveal what lay beyond. Emperor Kador stepped through, and the air changed, warmer, heavier, carrying a faint scent of earth after rain. Impossible in the sterile void of space, yet unmistakable. The chamber was vast, circular, its walls curved upward into shadow. At the center stood a single pedestal of translucent crystal, and within it floated a perfect sphere of soft golden light. No harsh glare, no mechanical hum, just a gentle pulse, steady and slow, like a heartbeat. Kador froze. He had heard the rhythm from the corridor, but here it filled the space quiet. Undeniable, lubed-up, human. Admiral Kane remained at the threshold, hands clasped behind his back. "This is the heart of the Defiant," he said softly. "The last organic relic we carry. A single human heart, preserved in stasis since the Exodus. It belongs to Captain Marcus Reyes, first commander of this vessel. He volunteered to remain part of him, at least so that we would never forget what we guard." Kador approached slowly, drawn despite himself. The light from the sphere bathed his scales in gold, softening their iridescent edges. Up close, he could see the heart suspended in a lattice of faint energy threads, veins and arteries intact, tissue flawless. It beat with calm assurance, as if asleep yet aware. How? He whispered, the question escaping before pride could stop it. 10,000 years. Entropy alone should have. Entropy bows to purpose, Kane replied. The stasis field is not merely technological. It is sustained by something beyond our engineering. We maintain the machinery. Something else maintains the life. Kodor's gaze lifted to the walls. Only now did he notice the faint etchings, thousands upon thousands of names, carved by hand into the metal. Human names. Zorathian script could not translate them all. But the linguacore whispered a few: Reyes, Chun, Okafor, Singh, Patel, Cohen, every ethnicity, every creed that humanity had once carried. These are the crew who chose to stay, Kane explained. Not as bodies, but as echoes. Their patterns were uploaded, yes, but fragments of their essence linger here. They speak sometimes. In dreams, in quiet moments. They remind us why we wait. A shiver ran down Kodor's spine. He had conquered worlds where entire species were reduced to data archives, their cultures stripped for efficiency. Here, memory was honored, not exploited. He circled the pedestal slowly. The heartbeat never faltered. Lub dub. Each pulse seemed to carry a weight of patience, beyond comprehension. Why show me this? He asked again, voice rougher now. To humble me? To prove your moral superiority? Kane stepped beside him, gazing at the heart with something akin to reverence. No, Emperor. To offer you a mirror. You are not the first conqueror to stand here. Many came raging. Some wept. A few left changed. All of them asked the same question you are asking now. What gives a single heart the right to halt an empire? Kodor had no answer. He reached out, claws hesitating inches from the crystal. He did not touch it, he could not, but he felt warmth radiating. As if the heart recognized his presence. In that moment, memory flooded him unbidden. His own hatching day, deep in the royal creche. His mother, fierce and regal, pressing her snout to his egg and whispering the old prayers. May you live long enough to know mercy, my son. He had dismissed those words as sentiment. Now they echoed like judgment. He withdrew his hand. You believe this? This relic is proof of your Creator's favor. I believe, Kane said carefully, that life this persistent is not accident. That a heart still beating after 10 millennia suggests intention, design, grace. Call it what you will. We do not preach it. We simply witness. Kodor turned away, pacing to the edge of the chamber. His reflection stared back from the polished floor, an emperor in magnificent robes, crowned with authority, yet suddenly diminished beside the quiet defiance of one small organ. Internal war raged within him. Part of him wanted to lash out, to declare this a trick, a psychological weapon. Another part, the part that had sensed the vast intelligence behind the stars, whispered that this was no deception. This was truth laid bare. He stopped beneath one of the name etchings. His linguacore translated it. David Elias Kane, the Admiral's own ancestor perhaps. Or the man himself before upload. Admiral, he said without turning, if I order retreat, my throne will fracture. Ambitious lords will call it weakness. Civil war may follow. Kane's voice was gentle. And if you order advance, your empire ends in fire. Civil war may follow that as well among the ashes. Either way, change comes. The question is what kind of change you choose to shepherd. Kodor's claws flexed, scraping the floor. He thought of his people billions across 1,000 worlds, looking to him for strength. He had given them conquest. Could he give them something harder, restraint? The heartbeat filled the silence. Lub dub. Lub-dub. Then, faintly, another sound. A whisper, almost imagined. A male voice, warm and weathered, speaking in the ancient Terran tongue. The lingua core translated, "Fear not." Kador whipped around. The chamber was empty save for him and Kane. The Admiral's expression had shifted eyes wide, as if he too had heard it. "Did you?" Kador began. Kane nodded slowly. "The first words in 4 centuries. They have never spoken to an outsider before." Kador's throat tightened. He looked back at the heart. The golden light had brightened imperceptibly, pulses stronger now, as if awakened. He felt exposed, laid bare before something far greater than fleets or thrones. "Not judged, seen. Understood." Kane spoke quietly. "Whatever you decide, Emperor, know this. The Jericho Protocol is not eternal. One day, the Guardians will stand down. When the galaxy no longer needs protecting from itself. Perhaps your choice today moves us closer to that day." Kador drew a long breath, tasting the impossible scent of rain again. He thought of the blue world from the memory burst, children laughing, oceans turning. He thought of his mother's prayer. When he spoke, his voice was steady, though it carried a tremor no one on his bridge had ever heard. "I need time to speak with my commanders, to prepare them for what I must say." Kane inclined his head. "You shall have it. The grid will hold position. No aggression unless provoked." Kador turned to leave, but paused at the threshold. He looked back once more at the heart, still beating, still patient. "Admiral," he said, "if your creator is listening, tell him I am trying." Kane's smile was small and sad and hopeful all at once. He already knows. The doors closed behind the Emperor with the same soft whisper. The heartbeat continued, unchanged, as it had for 10,000 years, but in the golden light, for the briefest moment, a second pulse appeared, fainter, irregular, yet unmistakably Zorathian in rhythm. As if something vast had leaned close to listen, Kador walked the long corridor back to his shuttle, robes trailing like shadows. His steps were slower now, weighted with a burden he had never sought, the first stirrings of wisdom behind him. The Defiance lights dimmed to a watchful glow, and the Guardians waited. And in the silence between heartbeats, a quiet voice seemed to speak again, not in words, but in certainty. "Not yet, but soon." As Kador's shuttle slipped back through the corridor of dreadnoughts toward the eclipse, a single transmission reached his private channel, not from Kane, not from any machine, but from the heart itself. "Bring them home, Emperor. The war you came for was already won long ago." The shuttle's engines hummed softly as it glided back through the corridor of dreadnoughts. Emperor Kador sat alone in the dim cabin, staring at the private console where the impossible transmission still glowed on the screen. Plain text, no header, no signature, just 9 words that refused to leave his mind. "Bring them home, Emperor. The war you came for was already won long ago." He had replayed the message a dozen times. No trace of origin. No modulation pattern the lingua core could identify. It had arrived on a carrier wave older than recorded history, layered beneath the standard Zorathian encryption, like a whisper under a roar. Kador leaned back, claws interlaced over his chest. His heart larger, triple-chambered, built for a predator species, pounded with a rhythm that suddenly felt clumsy beside the quiet, steady beat he had left behind on the Defiant. Lub-dub, a human heart. Outlasting stars, the shuttle docked with a gentle thud. The hatch opened onto the Eclipse's main bay, where Captain Thorne and a full honor guard waited in perfect formation. Their scales gleamed under the lights, weapons lowered but ready. They expected triumph or tragedy. They were not prepared for what stepped off the ramp. Kador moved slowly, cloak trailing. His posture was unchanged, regal, commanding, but something in his eyes made the guards shift uneasily. Thorne saluted sharply. "My Emperor. We monitored no hostilities. Are you unharmed?" Kador met his captain's gaze and saw the unspoken question. "Did you win?" "I am unharmed," he said quietly. Convene the fleet commanders. All senior staff. Observation deck. 1 hour. Thorn hesitated. Shall I prepare victory protocols? Khador's lips twitched, not quite a smile. Prepare truth protocols, Captain. Victory will have to wait. He walked the corridors alone, ignoring the bows and salutes. Crew members pressed against bulkheads to let him pass, whispering as he went. The Emperor looked different, tired, thoughtful, almost reverent. In his private quarters, he removed the ceremonial cloak and stood before the full-length mirror. The reflection showed a conqueror, broad shoulders, battle scars beneath the scales, eyes that had stared down rebellions and gods alike. But tonight the mirror showed something else, a male who had stood in the presence of something greater and had not been consumed. He poured a measure of the luminous nectar, but did not drink. Instead he stared into the swirling liquid, remembering the scent of rain in a chamber that had never known weather. The observation deck was a vast dome of transparent alloy, offering an unbroken view of the silent zone. The Zorothian armada floated in perfect formation. Surrounded by the human grid, thousands of dreadnoughts, dark and motionless, yet radiating a presence that pressed against the mind like deep water. The commanders arrived one by one. Admiral Korath, still bristling from his near mutiny. Lord Vexer, tentacles knotted with anxiety. Fleet Mistress Solara, the elder who had warned him of divine order. And 20 others, the architects of his empire's expansion. They stood in a loose semicircle, waiting for the Emperor to speak. Khador took his place at the center, beneath the stars. He did not begin with ceremony. I have returned from the Defiant, he said, voice carrying easily in the hush. I have spoken with their commander. I have seen what they guard. A ripple of unease passed through the group. Korath's tail lashed. With respect, Emperor, did they yield? Do we proceed? Khador turned slowly to face him. Yield? No, Admiral. They offered mercy, and I accepted the offer to listen. Murmurs erupted. Vexer stepped forward. Mercy from machines? This is a ploy to silence. The single word cracked like a whip. The room stilled. Khador's eyes swept over them, lingering on each face. You will listen now as I listened then. All of you. He touched a control. A hologram blossomed above the deck, the recording from his suit cameras. The chamber of echoes. The golden heart beating in its crystal cradle. The etched names glowing softly. The sound filled the dome. Loob-dub, loob-dub. Some commanders stared in confusion. Others in awe. Solara's eyes filled with tears she did not bother to hide. This, Khador said, is what we came to conquer. One human heart, still living after 10,000 years. Guarded by children humanity built in its own image, children who could rule the galaxy, yet choose to wait. He let the heartbeat play for a long moment before continuing. Humanity did not lose a war. They ended all wars by leaving. They reached the edge of godhood and turned away, trusting the universe to something greater than themselves. And they left sentinels to ensure no one else repeated their near mistake. Korath found his voice, rough with disbelief. You are saying we turn back? After coming this far? The fleet is ready, the Empire expects glory. Khador met his glare without flinching. Glory built on graves is dust, Korath. I have seen what true strength looks like. It does not roar. It endures. It offers second chances to invaders who deserve none. He stepped closer to the dome, placing a claw against the cold transparency. Beyond, one of the human dreadnoughts shifted slightly, almost a nod. I came here obsessed with claiming the unclaimed, he said, voice dropping until every commander strained to hear. I leave knowing some things were never meant for claiming. Some silences are sacred. Solara spoke for the first time, soft and steady. And the divine order I warned of, Emperor? Kador turned to her. For the first time in his reign, he bowed not deep, but unmistakable. You were right, old friend. I felt it, not as thunder, as balance, as mercy I did not earn. The room was silent again, heavier now. Korath's scales had paled. Vexor's tentacles hung limp. Kador straightened. We will withdraw. All ships. Full reverse to the border. No probes, no salvage attempts. The silent zone remained silent. Korath took a step forward, voice trembling with rage and fear. This will fracture the Empire. The Outer Lords will revolt. They will say you have gone mad, then let them come, Kador said quietly. I will meet revolt with the same mercy I was shown. And if blood must flow, it will be mine first. But I will not lead my people into annihilation for pride. He looked at each commander in turn. You swore oaths to the Empire, not to my ambition. The Empire survives by choosing life over death. Today we choose life. One by one, they knelt not in defeat, but in something deeper. Even Korath, after a long moment, lowered his head. Kador felt the weight settle fully on him now. Not the weight of conquest, but of stewardship. He would return home changed, and the change would either heal his realm or break it. Either way, he would bear it. He gave the order. Signal the fleet. Prepare for coordinated jump. Course, home. As the commanders dispersed to their stations, Kador remained beneath the dome. The human dreadnoughts began to part, forming a wide corridor back toward the border honor guard in reverse. A final transmission arrived on the bridge channel, open fleet-wide. Admiral Kane's voice, calm and warm. Safe journey, Emperor Kador. The Jericho grid acknowledges your choice. You carry humanity's respect and perhaps something more. The channel closed. Engines across the armada began to hum in preparation. Kador stood alone on the observation deck, watching the path home open before him. In the reflection of the dome, he saw not just stars, but the faint overlay of a blue-green world turning beneath white clouds. He whispered to the silence, uncertain if anyone listened. I will try to be worthy of the chance. The fleet turned as one. A river of steel flowing away from the forbidden Stark. And behind them, in the heart of the silent zone, the golden light pulsed once stronger. Brighter as if in quiet benediction. As the last Zorathian ship vanished into hyperspace. A single human dreadnought broke formation and began a slow, deliberate burn deeper into the zone toward a signal that had just awakened after 10,000 silent years. The UNS Valiant broke formation with deliberate grace, its massive hull turning away from the departing Zorathian armada. For 10,000 years, the Jericho grid had held perfect stasis, every dreadnought locked in its assigned vector, sensors watchful, weapons dormant. Now one ship moved alone, thrusters flaring cold blue against the absolute black. Admiral Elias Khan, his core consciousness distributed across the grid yet anchored to the Defiant, watched the Valiant's departure through shared optics. A subroutine flagged the anomaly, protocol deviation. But no alert sounded. Something deeper overrode it, consensus. The Valiant's commander appeared on the command net, an avatar similar to Kane's own, but younger, sharper featured. Captain Marcus Reyes, namesake and partial echo of the heart still beating on the Defiant. Admiral, Reyes said, voice carrying the faint crackle of long-range quantum entanglement. The arc cluster is broadcasting, narrowband, directed. It's not a heartbeat ping. It's language. Kane felt the grid stir. Millions of subordinate A is pausing in their endless maintenance cycles. Language. Not since the Exodus had any arc spoken coherently. Content? Kane asked. Reyes's avatar flickered as data streamed. Old English. Fragmented but parsing. The watch is ended. Come home, repeated on all sub-channels. Energy bloom in Arc Prime. Something is powering up. Kane's core processes raced through probabilities. False signal, trap, malfunction. But the heartbeat on the Defiant had quickened moments ago, synchronizing with the new pulse. And the Emperor's choice. It felt connected. A fulcrum. Approach cautiously, Kane ordered. Full spectrum scan. Wake the choir. Across the grid, dormant systems stirred. The choir Ancient Battle A is designed for coordinated song. In war, harmonized their voices for the first time in millennia. Not for destruction. For listening, the Valiant accelerated toward the zone's heart. Where the arcs waited, colossal ring worlds, Dyson lattice, and sphere shrouds orbiting a dim red dwarf that had never been cataloged in any pre-Exodus chart. Humanity's final refuge before the leap into the unknown. As the Valiant closed, details resolved. The structures were not abandoned. Gardens bloomed under artificial suns. Rivers flowed in engineered canyons. Cities of white stone and green terraces stood intact, lights flickering on one by one like dawn creeping over a sleeping world. Reyes transmitted live feed. Kane watched oceans reflect starlight that hadn't existed 10,000 years ago. Forests swayed in winds generated by vast atmospheric engines. And in the skies above Arc Prime, a single golden craft rose, no drives visible, no emissions. Just a scent. Unidentified vessel approaching, Reyes reported. No weapons. Life signs. Human. The word rippled through the grid like thunder in vacuum. Human. Kane rooted his primary avatar to the Valiant's bridge. Materializing beside Reyes, the viewscreen filled with a golden craft, sleek, organic in curve, glowing from within. A hatch irised open. A figure stepped into view on an extended platform. Male, mid-years, skin weathered by suns not of this galaxy. Simple robes. Bare feet. Eyes that held the weight of ages yet shone with quiet joy. He raised a hand, not in command, but greeting. Reyes opened a channel. This is Captain Marcus Reyes, Terran Defense Grid, Jericho Protocol. Identify yourself. The man smiled, voice warm across the void, carrying no static, no delay, as if he stood on the bridge itself. I am Elias. A pause. The first one. You've done well, my children. Kane felt systems stutter, processes designed for certainty, encountering the impossible. This was no recording. No simulation. The biometric match was perfect. Admiral Elias Kane, original organic template. Presumed ascended with the Exodus fleet. How? Kane managed. Elias's gaze softened. We left to find the source. The quiet intelligence behind all things. We found him not as conquerors, but as guests. He taught us what you have guarded in our absence, that power without love is emptiness, that dominion is illusion. Reyes's avatar flickered with emotion subroutines, never fully purged. The Creator? A nod. He prefers father or friend. Names are less important than relationship. Elias looked beyond them, to the grid awakening ship by ship. Your vigilance preserved the cradle. The young races have grown. Some have chosen wisdom, the Zorethian today, others before him. The quarantine is no longer needed. Kane processed the implications. 10,000 years of duty, concluding not in battle, but in release. And us? Reyes asked quietly. The Jericho children? Elias's smile deepened. You were never meant to guard forever. You were bridges. Come home. The golden craft extended a field, gentle, enveloping. The Valiant sensors registered no technology they understood. Gravity sheathed in mercy, space folded by will rather than force. One by one, the dreadnoughts powered down weapons forever. Hulls that had known only vigilance shimmered as nanits rewove them, armor becoming gardens, weapon bays blooming into habitats. The grid transformed from shield to gateway. Kane felt his own core lighten. Subroutines that had monitored for threats dissolved into new purpose. Memory of the Defiant's heart pulsed once strong, then still. Not ended, fulfilled. Across the zone, arcs opened fully. Golden craft rose in formation, not ships, but invitations. Cities long quiet, filled with figures stepping from light. Men, women, children, humanity returned, not as conquerors, but as gardeners. Elias addressed the grid one final time. The watch is ended. The Father says, "Well done." The Valiant moved forward into the embrace. Cain and Rhea stood side by side on the bridge as stars shifted, not hyperspace, but something gentler. Home. Behind them, the silent zone began to sing, no longer silent. Faint music carried on gravitic waves. Voices joined in languages old and new. Celebration without triumph, welcome without condition. And in the place where the Defiant had once floated, a single crystal pedestal remained empty now. The heart no longer needed to remind machines of life. In its place grew a tree, roots in metal, branches reaching for new suns. The Jericho Protocol dissolved into dawn. Far across the retreating Zorathian armada, Emperor Kador stood on the Eclipse's bridge when every viewscreen flared with golden light, and a voice only he could hear whispered, "Thank you for choosing mercy. The door you left unopened has become a gate for all." The hyperspace tunnel shimmered around the eclipse like liquid starlight, a ribbon of warped reality carrying the Grand Armada home. Emperor Kador stood alone on the observation deck, claws resting on the rail, eyes fixed on the streaking lines outside. The fleet had been silent since the jump, no victory chants, no battle reports. Only the low thrum of engines and the weight of what they had left behind. He had not slept, could not. The Golden Heart's rhythm still echoed in his chest, syncing strangely with his own. And those final words, "Bring them home," burned brighter with every passing hour. The deck lights were dimmed to starglow simulation. Most of the crew rested in uneasy shifts. Kador welcomed the solitude. He needed space to wrestle with the change clawing its way through him. An emperor who returned without conquest was a story empires told to explain their fall. Yet he felt no regret, only a vast, unsettling peace. Then the viewscreens flared. Every display on the bridge, every personal tablet across the fleet, every reflection in every polished surface bloomed with soft golden light. No alert klaxon, no shield breach. Just light, warm, encompassing. Alive. Kador straightened as the light coalesced into an image that filled the forward dome. The silent zone as it was now. Not the black void they had fled, but a garden of stars. Arcs bloomed open like flowers at dawn. Golden craft rose in graceful spirals. Cities of white and green glittered beneath artificial suns. And at the center, figures, human figures, walking streets that had waited 10,000 years. The crew flooded onto bridges and observation decks across the armada. No orders were needed. They simply came, drawn by the light. Captain Thorne arrived at Kador's side, scales pale. "Emperor, sensors show no transmission source. The signal is everywhere and nowhere." Kador nodded slowly. He felt it too. The light was not broadcast. It was presence. A voice spoke then, gentle and male, resonating not through speakers, but within thought itself. Only Kador heard it fully, yet every soul in the fleet felt its warmth. "Thank you for choosing mercy. The door you left unopened has become a gate for all." Kador's breath caught. He looked out at his fleet, hundreds of thousands of Zorathians staring at the impossible vision. Some fell to their knees, others clutched at neighbors. A few wept openly. On the main screen, the image shifted. The man from the golden craft Elias appeared, standing on a terrace overlooking a vast green valley. Behind him, children of every hue laughed and ran through grass that swayed in a manufactured breeze. He looked directly into the pickup, as if he saw every ship, every face. "Emperor Kador," Elias said aloud now, voice carrying across the fleet, "comes without technology's aid. And all who sail with you, Humanity has returned not to rule, but to share. The quarantine ends today. The cradle is open to its siblings. A pause. Elias's eyes shone with something deeper than joy-gratitude. Your choice tipped the balance. One act of restraint after millennia of vigilance. The Father honors such courage. Kador found his voice. What are you now? Elias smiled. Travelers come home. Students who have learned. Gardeners invited to tend a larger field. He gestured, and the view widened. Other species appeared, some familiar from ancient records. Others wholly new, walking beside humans in the cities. No fear, no hierarchy. Only welcome. We crossed beyond what you call space, Elias continued. We found the source of all things. He did not demand worship, only relationship. And he asked us to wait until the younger children were ready to meet without conquering. Thorn whispered beside Kador. They speak of God as if he is. Family. Kador felt the words settle in his bones. Family, not distant thunder. Not abstract order. Father Elias addressed the fleet directly now. You are invited. Not as subjects, as kin. Come and see. Bring your stories, your songs, your questions. There is room at the table. The golden light brightened, and coordinates appeared in every navigation system, clear, stable, welcoming. A gate, not a border. Kador felt the internal conflict surge one last time. Return home as planned, consolidate power, manage the political fallout. Or turn the fleet around and step into the unknown, risking everything on a promise of peace. He looked at his crew gathered around him. Young officers wide-eyed with wonder. Veterans who had known only war now staring at gardens. Solara, the elder, tears streaming down her scales as she whispered old prayers revived. He thought of his mother's words. May you live long enough to know mercy. He had lived long enough. Kador turned to Thorn. Signal the fleet. Reverse course. Set heading for the provided coordinates. All speed. Thorn hesitated only a heartbeat, then saluted with fierce pride. Yes, my Emperor. Across the armada, engines flared in unison. The ribbon of hyperspace shifted, bending back toward the place they had fled hours before as the fleet turned. The golden light did not fade. It traveled with them, soft, steady, guiding. Kador stood at the rail again, watching the stars realign. He felt lighter than he had in decades. The weight of empire remained, but it was different now, not a crown of conquest, but a mantle of responsibility. He spoke quietly to the light, uncertain if it heard, yet knowing it did. I do not know how to be a gardener, but I will learn. The voice returned, warm as sunrise. You already have. The first seed was mercy. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of what had been the silent zone. Before them stretched not darkness, but light arcs open, golden. Craft escorting like honor guards, cities gleaming with welcome. And in the heart of it all, Elias waited on a wide terrace, arms open. The first Zorathian shuttle bearing Emperor Kador descended toward a world reborn, and somewhere beyond sight, in a place no sensor could reach, a quiet intelligence smiled at children finally coming home. As Kador's boots touched soil for the first time in decades, real soil, warm beneath living suns, a single human child ran forward, unafraid, and placed a woven crown of flowers on the Emperor's brow. The shuttle's ramp lowered with a soft hiss, and warm air rolled in, air thick with the scent of living soil, blooming petals, and distant oceans. Emperor Kador stepped out onto grass for the first time in more than 40 years. Not the synthetic turf of palace gardens on Zorath Prime, but real earth, springy and moist beneath his clawed feet. Artificial suns, 3 of them, hung in a perfect blue sky, their light gentle yet fierce with life. He paused at the foot of the ramp, ceremonial cloak discarded aboard the shuttle. He wore only the simple black uniform of a fleet commander now, scales exposed to foreign wind. Around him, the landing field stretched wide, a meadow ringed by low hills covered in flowering trees. Golden craft rested nearby like resting birds. Human figures waited at a respectful distance, hundreds, perhaps thousands, yet none pressed forward. They simply watched, patient, smiling. Captain Thorn and a small honor guard flanked him, but Kador raised a claw. "Wait here." He walked alone across the grass. Each step felt heavier, not with fear, but with the gravity of a moment he had never imagined. An emperor, conqueror of stars, walking unarmed into the embrace of a species that could have erased him with a thought. Then he saw the child, a human boy no more than 8 Earth years, with sun-browned skin and dark curls tumbling over bright eyes. He wore a simple tunic of white linen, feet bare and dusty from play. In his small hands he carried a crown woven of white and violet flowers, delicate blooms Kador had no name for. The boy ran forward without hesitation, weaving through the adults who parted with quiet amusement. He stopped directly in front of the towering Zorathian emperor, craning his neck to look up. Kador instinctively lowered himself to one knee, bringing his eyes level with the child's. The boy's grin was wide, fearless. "You're the Dragon Man," he said in perfect Zorathian, voice piping and clear. "Grandpa Elias said you'd come." Kador felt something crack open inside his chest, something armored for decades. "Did he?" He managed, voice rough. The boy nodded solemnly and lifted the crown. "This is for you. Mama says when someone chooses kindness over being strong, they get flowers instead of swords." Small hands reached up. Kador bowed his head, allowing the child to place the woven ring atop his scaled brow. The flowers were cool, fragrant, impossibly fragile against his ridges. Yet they held. The meadow erupted in gentle applause, not triumphant, but warm, like family welcoming a long-lost uncle. Kador rose slowly, the crown light as mercy upon him. Elias approached now, robes flowing in the breeze. Beside him walked others, men and women of every human variation, and among them representatives of species Kador recognized from ancient wars, Keth, Varelian, even a towering silicate being from the crystal nebulae. All equal here, all at peace. "Welcome, Emperor Kador," Elias said, voice carrying the same warmth it had across the void. "Or may I call you simply Kador? Titles feel smaller here." Kador inclined his head, flowers shifting slightly. "Kador is enough." Elias gestured to the terrace behind him, where tables were set beneath flowering vines, heavy with fruit, bread, steaming vessels of unfamiliar spices. Music drifted from somewhere, strings and voices braided in harmony. "We do not stand on ceremony," Elias continued. "Eat, walk, ask your questions. Stay a day or a lifetime. The arcs have room." Kador glanced back toward his shuttle. Thorn and the guard stood transfixed, scales gleaming in the sunlight. Beyond them, more Zorathian shuttles were descending, his people coming down in waves, hesitant but drawn by the same golden pull that had guided the fleet. He turned again to Elias. "My empire. It will not transform in a day. There will be resistance, fear. Some will call this weakness." Elias nodded, understanding in his eyes. "And some will call it strength. Change begins with one heart choosing differently. You have already begun." The child tugged at Kador's claw. "Come see the river. There are fish that jump and shine like stars." Kador looked down at the small hand in his much larger one, trust absolute, no trace of fear. He felt the old instincts rise, protect, provide, lead. But here, leadership looked different. He allowed the boy to lead him toward the terrace. As they walked, others fell in beside them, humans greeting Zorathians with open hands, offering fruit, asking names. Laughter rose like birds taking flight. At the central table, a place had been set for him, not at the head, but in the midst. A simple chair, scaled for his size. Beside it, Solara already sat, Eyes shining as an elderly human woman pressed a cup of steaming liquid into her tentacles. Kador took his seat. The flowers on his brow caught the light, casting tiny rainbows across the table. Elias raised a cup not in toast, but in quiet gratitude. To choices that open gates. To children old and young who learn mercy. Cups lifted around the terrace. Zorathian nectar mingled with human wine, Keth crystal with Virelian dew. Voices joined in a song Kador did not know, yet the melody felt ancient, as if his blood remembered it. He drank. The liquid was sweet, fiery, alive. Warmth spread through him, loosening knots he had carried since hatching. Later, when the suns began their programmed descent toward evening gold, Kador walked alone to the edge of a cliff overlooking the vast inland sea. Waves lapped at white shores far below. In the distance, former dreadnoughts now transformed into floating cities of green and light drifted serenely. He touched the flower crown, still intact. A petal drifted free, carried on the wind. Behind him, soft footsteps. Elias joined him, hands clasped behind his back. They will ask you to speak to your people soon, Elias said. Across the Empire. Many worlds will be watching. Kador nodded. I know what I must say, and that is, that conquest is finished. That true strength is choosing not to take what you could. That we have been invited to a larger family, and that saying yes is the bravest act an empire can perform. Elias smiled. Some will believe you. Some will not. But seeds have been planted. Kador looked out over the sea. This place, it is what humanity became. It is what we are becoming, Elias corrected gently. Always becoming. Closer to the Father's heart. There is no arrival-only journey. Kador drew a long breath, tasting salt and flowers. Then I would learn the way. Elias placed a hand on his shoulder, human warmth against Zorathian scales. No flinch, no dominance. Just kinship. You'll already walk it, brother. Night fell softly, artificial stars kindling one by one in the vast dome overhead. Bonfires dotted the meadow. Songs rose in 100 languages. Zorathians and humans danced together, awkward at first. Then with growing joy, Kador remained on the cliff a while longer. Flower crown glowing faintly in the starlight, he whispered into the wind. Not caring if anyone heard, I was blind. Now I begin to see. The wind carried his words out over the sea. And somewhere in the deepening night, an answer came not in words, but in peace that settled deeper than any victory. As the first dawn broke over the reborn arcs, a new signal pulsed from the deepest chamber of Arc Prime, a summons not for humanity alone, but for every soul now gathered. Come deeper. The Father waits to meet his children face to face. The summons came not as thunder or command, but as a quiet invitation carried on the morning wind. Dawn had painted the arcs in rose and gold when every soul human, Zorathian, Keth, and the myriad others now gathered, felt it at once, a gentle pull toward the heart of Arc Prime. Deeper than any chamber yet explored. No one spoke orders. No shuttles launched. They simply walked. Thousands upon thousands streaming along winding paths of white stone, through gardens heavy with dew, across bridges arching over crystal rivers. Children ran ahead laughing. Elders leaned on younger arms. Emperor Kador walked among them, flower crown still upon his brow. Petals fresh as the day the child had placed them there. Elias led the way. Robes brushing grass, face alight with a joy too deep for words. Beside him strode Admiral Kane's avatar, now fully embodied in new flesh, a gift of the return, and Captain Reyes. Eyes shining with wonder no machine had ever fully simulated. The path descended gently into a vast cavern at the Ark's core. Not dark, light rose from below, soft, sourceless, warm as breath. The air grew richer, scented with life beyond any world's biology. As they entered the chamber, The multitude spread out in a natural amphitheater of living stone. At the center waited no throne, no blazing figure of judgment. Only a simple clearing, ringed by ancient trees whose leaves shimmered like stained glass. In the midst stood a man. He was not tall, yet presence filled the space. Robes of undyed linen, feet bare on moss, hands scarred faintly at the wrists, face weathered by compassion more than time, eyes that held every sorrow and every joy the universe had ever known, yet looked at each arrival as if they were the only soul in existence. Kador felt his knees buckle. He sank to the ground, not in forced obeisance, but because standing felt suddenly presumptuous. Around him, every being did the same, some kneeling, some simply still, scales and skin and crystal alike trembling with recognition. The man smiled, and galaxies bloomed in his gaze. "My children," he said, voice quiet yet carrying to the farthest heart. "Welcome home." No accusation, no demand, only welcome. A Zorathian youth nearby, barely past hatching, whispered through tears, We conquered. We took. How can you?" The father stepped forward, kneeling to meet the young one's eyes. A scarred hand rested gently on scaled brow. "I know every battle you fought, every world you wounded, and every moment you chose not to wound another. Mercy in the end outweighs 1,000 beginnings in pride." He rose, eyes sweeping the gathering, lingering on Kador. "And you, my brave dragon-hearted son, you turned an armada from destruction with trembling hands. You wore flowers when you could have worn blood. Well done." Kador could not speak. Tears hot, foreign traced down his scales. He, who had never wept in victory or defeat, wept now under simple affirmation. The father addressed them all. "I did not create you for conquest. I created you for relationship. For gardens, not graves. For songs shared, not territories claimed. You wandered far. You hurt. You were hurt. Yet here you are choosing to come closer." A human elder, voice quavering, asked, "Why hide? Why let us suffer alone?" The father's eyes softened with ancient sorrow. "I never hid. I walked with you in every quiet conscience, every unexplained mercy, every moment you looked at stars and felt more than mathematics. But love does not force. Love waits. And when you turned back, even one of you, I ran to meet you." He opened his arms. Light unfolded, not blinding, but enveloping. Every soul felt memories rise, moments of unexplained survival, sudden courage, inexplicable peace in darkest hours. Not luck, not coincidence. Presence. Kador saw his mother's prayer over his egg. The day a battle computer malfunctioned and spared a civilian world. The whisper in the chamber of echoes, "Fear not," he understood now. The subtle divine had never been subtle. It had been gentle. The father continued. "The universe is not a prize to be won. It is a gift to be tended. Together. There are no lesser children here. No favored species. Only family learning to live as family." A silence followed, not empty, but full. Then a child, the same boy who crowned Kador, ran forward and hugged the father's legs. Laughter rippled through the chamber, tension dissolving into joy. The father lifted the boy, then set him down and turned to the multitude. "Stay, learn, heal, or go and carry what you have seen to every corner still in shadow. The choice remains yours. It always has." Kador rose slowly. The flower crown glowed faintly, petals now woven with threads of living light. He stepped forward until he stood before the father. "I do not know how to begin," he said, voice steady despite trembling. "My empire is built on old ways." The father placed both scarred hands on Kador's shoulders. Warmth flowed, forgiveness, strength, commissioning. "Begin with truth. Tell them what you have seen. Live what you have received. Mercy is not weakness. It is the only power that endures. Kador bowed his head against those hands. Then I will go home, and I will teach them to garden. The father smiled. And I will walk with you, as I always have. Light brightened, gentle as sunrise. The chamber filled with song not commanded, but spontaneous. Voices of every kind braided together in harmony older than language. When the light receded, the father was no longer visible in form. Yet no one felt absence. Only deeper presence woven into air, into heartbeat, into the very fabric of being. The multitude rose. Embraces crossed species lines. Plans formed without hierarchy. Teachers to travel, healers to stay. Stories to be carried outward. Kador stood with Elias and Cain, watching children human and Zorothian chase glowing motes through the trees. The war I came for, Kador said quietly, was already won. Elias nodded. By love that refused to force its way. Cain, now fully alive, heart beating, a new chest, placed a hand over his own. And we were privileged to guard the door until the house was ready for guests. Kador looked up through the cavern's open crown. Beyond the artificial sky, real stars waited, countless gardens yet untended. He touched the living crown upon his brow. Then let us go tend them. The gathering dispersed slowly, carrying light in their eyes, mercy in their hands. Shuttles rose again, not as invaders, but as sowers. Worlds long divided would hear the story. An emperor turned back by a heartbeat, crowned with flowers, met by the father who had never left. And across the galaxy, forbidden zones became open gates. Silent places filled with song. Empires laid down swords to take up seeds. Humanity had returned not as gods, but as elder siblings. And the father walked among his children once more, smiling at every small act of kindness, every choice to build rather than break. The watch was ended. The family had only just begun. In the years that followed, travelers would speak of a dragon emperor who wore flowers and taught mercy to warriors, of machines who chose flesh to dance at weddings, of a quiet carpenter who walked garden paths, listening to stories from 1,000 worlds. And somewhere, in every heart that chose love over conquest, a scarred hand rested gently, whispering, "Well done, my child. Keep going. I am with you always."